Hello and welcome to the London North Centre All Candidates Debate in the 2025 Ontario election. I'm Patrick Maloney, digital editor with the London Free Press, and I will serve as moderator for today's debate. Before we begin, I'll note that all the candidates running in this riding were invited to participate, including the Progressive Conservative candidate. We have 4 candidates with us, and we'll begin by allowing each of them 1 minute to introduce themselves, starting with Terence Kernaghan of the New Democrats.
Hello everyone, I'm Terence Kernaghan, first elected to represent London North Centre in 2018 and re-elected in 2022 and hoping to be your MPP now this term. You know, since I was elected, I've been honored to bring forward legislation to support Londoners, such as Marymount and rent control. I've also been proud to introduce legislation has been endorsed by London City Council, and also legislation that has been endorsed by the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. I look forward to supporting Londoners. I try to make myself as accessible as possible by meeting people at their doors, as well as at community events. And I look forward to supporting London and bringing London's needs forward to Queen's Park yet again this next term.
We'll move next to Paul McKeever of the Freedom Party.
Ladies and gentlemen, my position on the issues that matter to Ontarians in this election: I believe in 4-year fixed election dates, not in snap elections. I believe that the worst response to an actual emergency is to grant the Premier unlimited emergency powers. I think the fastest way to make Ontario the 51st state is for Ontario to engage in a unwise trade war with the United States. I think that the Ontario government ought to regard gender to be a matter of biology, not of sociology. I think that every female space and every female sport should be for females only. I believe that every individual should be defended against life-changing gender ideology and procedures until the age of 18, which is the age of consent. I believe that every person should be judged by their merits, not by the color of their skin. And I seek to defend every person and to seek justice for every person who was harmed by the forward response to the COVID crisis. I'm Paul McKeever, and I seek to represent you in Queen's Park. Thank you.
Next, Carol Dick of the Green Party.
Thank you, Rogers, for hosting us. I'm Carol Dick of the Green Party. I've called London home for almost 20 years. I have raised my children here. I have been an active community volunteer. I know what a great city London is. We have beautiful green spaces. We have world-class educational institutions. We are Canada's first UNESCO City of Music, and our opportunities economically just keep growing. But I also know that great cities need the support of their province. Here, Londoners have been let down. NGOs and municipalities are straining under the burden of delivering essential services when it is the government that should be taking the lead to build healthier, more affordable, more welcoming cities. We need a government that works for us. We need a government that puts people before profits. We need hope for the future. The Green Party platform delivers that, and I look forward to sharing it with you. Thanks.
Tariq Khan of the Liberal Party.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Rogers, for this opportunity, frankly. My name is Tariq Khan. I'm a Londoner. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm a music lover. I'm a cyclist, and I'm a passionate Londoner, like everybody in London. I have over 30 years experience working in public, private, non-profit, and health sectors. Like being a semi-retired, I'm also passionate to share my life stories, lessons, and the achievements or the opportunities I got and I would like to share. I have been working on various advisory committees for the City of London in the last 12 years. I was on environment. Sorry, thank you.
It's in my lifetime, there's never been a provincial election that was defined by a foreign politician, but here we are, with Donald Trump's 25% across-the-board tariffs threatened and shaking the economic foundations of the province. So our first question, can you give us your opinion of U.S. President Donald Trump? And we'll start with Tariq Khan of the Liberals.
Yeah, it's like a Mump era. It's Elon Musk and Trump united against Canada. And we are united, being a Canadian, being an Ontarian, against them. We are ready anything they would like to, and we have a plan. We have a very solid plan to support our individuals, support our middle class, support our lower middle class, every Ontarians, and support our business class and the small business.
Terrence Kernahan with the New Democrats.
The existential threat that Trump poses to our sovereignty is massive. But at this time, Doug Ford should not have quit his job and thrown us into this unnecessary election. Doug Ford would like us to have us believe that this election is about Donald Trump, when in point of fact, Doug Ford has gone to the United States and has no position. He has been speaking to rooms full of Canadians. Instead, we should be back at the legislature right now protecting Ontario's jobs by making sure we're following the recommendations of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce and reducing interprovincial trade barriers, looking for new trading partners, and as well as protecting those key jobs in the auto sector, in the agriculture sector, and so many more. We've seen Doug Ford's track record on records is abysmal. He's removed Canadian content provisions for the Alstom Ontario Line subway cars from 25% to 10%, and he didn't stand up to fight for Ford Motor Company when they were set to leave Oshawa. We need a premier that's going to stand up for Ontario.
Paul McKeever of the Freedom Party.
Well, the president was elected to do exactly what the people wanted him to do, which in this case is to bring more jobs into the United States. We shouldn't be surprised by that. But what we should be aware of is his procedure is to issue executive orders, and they usually will be upheld more commonly if there is a national security issue. By going down south, Doug Ford has said, the United States, Mexico, and Canada ought to cooperate against the real enemy, that's China. As soon as he said that, he made it look like there is an actual national emergency, which gives more force to Donald Trump's executive orders. We're doing this all wrongly. We're taking the bait. And the best thing to do is to open our ears, shut our mouths, and work toward a better trade deal that doesn't have Ontario trying to undercut Americans with such things as domestic subsidies in the hundreds of billions of dollars.
Carol Dick of the Green Party.
So we see that obviously Trump is creating a lot of chaos. That's kind of his ammo. But we need to start focusing on how we can build Ontario to be more resilient, because this is not going to change for the next 4 years. It is going to be the same, that he is going to keep issuing these executive orders. Most people, I would say, do not appreciate that Doug Ford threw Mexico under the bus. We should be actually working with our allies like Europe, like Mexico, to diversify our trade. The Green Party came out with a plan almost immediately after Doug Ford decided to do his tariff threats in reverse. And when Donald Trump said that he was going to institute those tariffs on us. We need to have a Buy Ontario policy. We need to have a tariffs task force to deal with this issue. We need to create a fund to support those jobs that are going to be lost. We need to get down those barriers between the provinces so that we can start diversifying our trade and be stronger going forward.
Another question on the tariff front, given how important it is to so many voters. More specifically, if your party was in power, what would you make sure was Ontario's best approach to the threatened tariffs? And we'll start with Carol Dick of the Green Party.
I just said, what we need to do is make sure that we are resilient and strong. There's a number of ways that we can do that. First and foremost, by having this fund to protect those businesses that are going to be threatened. But what we also have to do is protect our agricultural land. That means immediately stopping the building of any 400 series highways through our agricultural land. We need to make sure that we will be food secure. We have to create this task force for all levels of government, different forms of business, to deal with how we're going to address these tariffs. That means creating jobs and diversifying our trade across the provinces and with other countries. That way we can actually work to reduce our dependency on the United States. Right now, Doug Ford is trying to make us more dependent on the United States. We need to shift back from that and make sure that we are making us resilient and strong going forward.
Tariq Khan of the Liberals.
Yeah, thank you. The first thing, if we were in the power, the first thing we would never tell a lie to Ontarians, that we need a mandate which already the Ford has. And then we were more focused towards the unity of Ontarians so we can fight in a unified way. Otherwise, yes, on the contingency side, yes, we developed our program now because we are put into this very awkward situation. So we have developed our program to stimulate housing, to fund more, to give more incentives to the small and medium scale businesses. We are going to reduce their taxes. We are going to. Oh, I was out.
Terrence Kernahan of the New Democrats.
You know, the United States is our largest trading partner, and I think Doug Ford is using this threat of tariffs as a bait and switch. People at the doors know that the Premier's office is currently under RCMP investigation for corruption in relation to the Greenbelt scandal. So I think the best way, though, to deal with this is to have a Buy Ontario approach. Any government expenditures and procurement needs to be purchased from Ontario workers and Ontario jobs. You know, I think it's very disturbing when you see that Doug Ford went to the United States in February of 2020 to meet with 7-Eleven executives to talk about the privatization of alcohol within corner stores. He also ended the MFA agreement a year and a half early, costing in the billions. There's so many deals that Doug Ford has made that prioritize wealthy international conglomerates. You think of the Therme Spa at Ontario Place. You think of the $1 billion he handed over to the foreign owners of the 407 for nothing. We need to focus on an economic approach that reinforces Ontario's jobs.
And Paul McKeever of the Freedom Party.
Well, I think it's more important to keep in mind what not to do. This is primarily about the negotiation of an international trade agreement. It doesn't really fall within the confines of the Premier's job. The Premiers of the provinces have no authority to impose tariffs. It makes no sense for them to threaten to have tariff for tariff wars. They have no authority to prevent exports of things like minerals. Doug Ford has no business talking about stopping the exports. You cannot switch off the electricity to the United States. It's a completely naive idea. We have an interconnected system. If we were to try and do that, it would actually harm the system. And we actually make money off of the sale of electricity to the States on a daily basis. We would be shooting ourselves in the foot. This is a dog and pony show going on in the United States. It's a mistake for us to pretend that it's real, to give it air. And the best thing to do is to allow the United States to do their thing, and for us simply to negotiate, to listen to them for what they need to make the trade deal fair.
In London alone, more than 70,000 citizens have no family doctor. Do they deserve a tax rebate for having no gateway to the healthcare system they help pay for? And we'll start with Paul McKeever of the Freedom Party.
Well, that's a novel idea. I hadn't heard of that before. It certainly would be in line with things Freedom Party has proposed in the past. There are, contrary to to popular belief, the Canada Healthcare Act does not say that the provinces must have solely a socialized medical system. It simply says that everybody should have the ability to use the same system. In other words, access to medical systems on the same terms at the same prices. So you can easily open up the system so that people who aren't being served by the socialized system would have alternatives to it. And we've suggested that there be a release valve for people who wish instead to take their money and spend it on private alternatives. So we're in favor of that. It's not a proposal we've made about rebates, but it's an interesting one to consider.
Next, we'll go to Carol Dick of the Green Party.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting proposal. I mean, we've already seen some other rebates of late, the $200 check that seemed a little bit more like a bribe. I think the main thing to focus on, though, is actually getting primary care for all Ontarians. And we do have a plan in the Green Party to make that happen within the next 3 to 4 years. The first thing we have to remember is we don't need the highway. So if we were just to cancel 407 the 413 highway, that would save $10 billion that we could immediately put into our healthcare system. We need to hire 3,500 doctors, and we have plans in place to make sure that we create more residencies for those doctors so that we can keep them here. We need to create clinics that have nurse practitioner-led practices so that people in rural areas can get access to healthcare. But right now, we are wasting money on projects that just aren't important for the well-being of Ontarians.
Tariq Khan of the Liberals.
Yeah, thank you very much. This health is very near to my heart. I have 2 family doctors in my home, so I listen from them on a daily basis. I'm while knocking at the door, I'm listening that 1 in 4 in London, they don't have any family doctors. And we have a plan to make sure that each and every Londoner have a family doctor. We are short of 100 family doctors only in London. We have a plan to utilize 1,200 international IMGs, international medical graduates, to induct into our active health force so we can utilize. In London, we have 268 medical doctors. We need another 100 more. We have a plan to build 2 new medical schools and then double the residency positions in the existing medical schools so we can make sure that each and every Londoner will have.
Terence Kernahan with the New Democrats.
One of the main concerns I hear about is lack of access to a family care physician and the lack of access to that longitudinal care. There are 2.5 million Ontarians without access to a family doctor. That's 128,000 here in the London area. With the Ontario NDP, we have a family health guarantee. We're going to hire 3,500 doctors and also increase funding for family health teams, that great interdisciplinary model of care where you get to see a number of people to look after all the different aspects of your health. Unfortunately, funding for community health clinics and family health teams has remained stagnant for the last 27 years. In fact, it's only gone up 6%. That is such a shame. There are a number of people who want this type of practice, but simply aren't able to enter it. We will also expedite the credentialing of 13,000 internationally trained physicians. We will increase the spots within medical schools, and we will make sure that everyone has access to that caring family doctor that they deserve.
Homeless encampments have become a common sight in municipalities across Ontario, and London, of course, is no exception. It wasn't very long ago where this would have been completely unheard of. So our question is, what is your party's solution to help ease this crisis? And we'll start with Terence Kernahan of the New Democrats.
Doug Ford's legacy is that of encampments. There are over 81,000 people right now experiencing homelessness within the province of Ontario, no matter where you look. In London, the situation is dire. Since I was first elected, I've been calling for emergency funding for the alleviation of homelessness. We need a housing first approach. With the Ontario NDP, our plan is to create 60,000 supportive units so that people have those wraparound supports that they deserve to help get their life back on track. I was also proud to introduce Homes Ontario, the Ontario NDP's plan to create that affordable housing that has been left neglected since the mid-1990s when Mike Harris made his massive cuts and downloaded a lot of responsibilities onto the provinces, or onto the municipalities, pardon me. What we will also do is we'll re-upload shelter funding back to the province and make sure that the province is paying its bills when it comes to these responsibilities.
Paul McKeever of the Freedom Party.
Our platform this year doesn't address the homelessness problem. That's not our focus. Our focus is the freedom of every individual's and the protection of their life, liberty, and property. But if you look at the green space scandal that Doug Ford's found himself in with the RCMP, he, in 2023, reversed the decision to take land out of the green belt and to swap it for other land that wasn't as important to the ecology. The problem is that when he reversed the procedure, he not only put back in the land that he had taken out of the green belt, he left in the land that he had swapped in lieu of it. So we've actually decreased the amount of land in Ontario that can be used for housing development. So the first thing that we need to do is have a place to put homes, and that means stopping the crazy process of making the green belt exceedingly large and the possibilities for home building exceedingly small.
Carol Dick of the Green Party.
So there's 2 different issues when we're talking about the encampment. So if we were just to deal with housing itself, we have a plan to get 2 million homes within the next 10 years and 250,000 nonprofit and co-op homes made, as well as 60,000 wraparound service homes for those with mental illness. But one of the big issues that we have is that we need to prevent people from ending up on the streets. And that means providing mental health care early on. And so in our policy, we are going to cover mental health under the healthcare OHIP so that people can get the help that they need before it gets to a crisis situation. For those that are first-time home buyers, we are going to remove the land transfer tax. And to create more homes, we're going to remove the development charge on all homes within urban boundaries that are under 2,000 square feet. We have plans to create a variety of different homes right in neighborhoods now so that we can solve this homelessness crisis.
We'll move now to Tariq Khan of the Liberals.
Thank you very much. Poverty and homelessness, it should not be a crime. They are like us. Think about they are out in -15, and we should think from their perspective. We have a very solid plan, and I promise if I will be elected, I will bring funding, and you will not see a single homeless people at least in London North End.
Our next question, and again, before I ask this, I'll note for the viewers again that the Progressive Conservative candidate was invited to participate in this debate. Why does Ontario need Doug Ford's promised $1 billion overhaul of the police college in Aylmer when so many of our school children are attending class in glorified trailers parked outside their school buildings? We'll start with Tariq Khan of the Liberals.
Thank you very much. I mean, look at their priorities. They are more steel and cement focus rather than investing into education, health, housing, and health. So, I mean, let me share my. My daughter's car was broken last night at my driveway. So we need to think that, okay, why these people are doing it? These are not the criminals. They may be looking for something, a quick money. We need to address that side of thing. So we should feel safe.
Terence Kernahan of the New Democrats.
You know, you put it very well, Pat, to say that kids are learning in inadequate environments. I was proud to fight for promised funding that the Liberal government had promised, one of those election promises right before, for an expansion funding for Masonville Public School. There were 17 portables there. When Ford first took power, that funding was under threat. I was so proud to fight for that neighborhood and to fight for that expansion funding, and now it has been completed. Similarly, I fought for expansion funding for Eagle Heights Public School, which had 16 or 17 portables, and now that school is being renovated. These are investments that the government needs to see as a key economic driver for our province. But under Doug Ford, we've seen education funding fall by $1,500 per student since he was first elected in 2018. And further to that, we see that school violence is at an all-time high. We need to make sure that kids have the supports that they need and that they deserve in school, because it will create the future for us all.
Paul McKeever of the Freedom Party.
Well, I think that points it out. I mean, you can't have safety without law enforcement. You can't have law enforcement without police. And it's not an either-or situation. If the police college needs expansion or improvement of its facilities so that the officers are trained properly and well and on time, then we can't just say, well, because we have an expense that we're responsible for in schools, we can't do anything to help the training of police officers. It's not an either or. When the government takes on responsibilities for public facilities, they take on responsibility for all of them. And I think it's a mistake to play one off against the other. As Mr. Kernahan says, if we've got violence in our schools, we do need legal intervention. And that requires more policing, not less.
Okay, and we'll move now to Carol Dick of the Green Party.
Well, for me, it just shows that Doug Ford's priorities and his methods are backwards. If we really want to stop the problems that are happening right now, we don't need Band-Aid solutions. And that shows the difference between the Green Party and the other parties. We look at ways of preventing issues, and the best way to prevent issues is to invest in children early. Right off, we are going to increase the funding for every child in schools by $1,500, and then that will increase with inflation. Because right now the schools are woefully unfunded. We want to have a school nutrition program that will double the number of students that get food right away, and that will expand to be for all students by 2030. The reason why that needs to happen is that kids that don't have food can't learn, and kids that can't learn end up having problems in school, like the violence that Mr. Kernahan was talking about. And we need to address those issues, because stopping that now will prevent crime in the future.
Okay, our next question. Imagine for a moment that you were in charge of Ontario for a day. You could wave your hand and pass one policy for the province. What would it be? And our question goes first to Carol Dick of the Green Party.
Well, fortunately, the policy that I would like to see is actually in our platform, and that is that mental health care would be covered by OHIP. I see a crisis that is about to happen. I'm watching it happen with young people today who are traumatized by the COVID pandemic, and kids that are traumatized because they don't have food. They're worried about the affordability crisis. They're hearing about the threat of tariffs and other issues from the United States. And this is creating a mental health crisis that is going to explode in the future if we don't take care of it now. And children right now have to wait sometimes up to 18 months to get care, and that is much too long. Under our plan, they would get help within 30 days. If we start taking that preventative action right now, we can prevent problems further down the road, like the encampments we were talking about and the addictions crisis. So we need to act now. It is not about creating a Band-Aid solution, it's about prevention.
Move next to Tariq Khan of the Liberals.
Yeah, if I am a premier for the day, one day, my whole priority would be the health. If I have a healthy people, I can have a healthy economics, I can have a healthy cities and everything. So there are about 1 million people who travel daily travel 50 kilometers to just see a family doctor. There are about 150,000 people who travel over 200 kilometers just to see a family doctor. It's a real crisis. So when I talk health, it covers everything. It covers mental health, it covers like general health, it's covered like people are waiting for the test. In 2023, Doug Ford closed about more than 1,200 ERs. We developed 23 hospitals during our tenure. 11,000 people died just waiting for their test and the lab results. Thank you.
Terence Kernahan of the New Democrats.
It would start with the recognition of what the key economic drivers are for our province, and that is healthcare, education, and housing. In particular, with housing, we need the government to resume its historic responsibility to provide affordable housing, because if people don't have a safe place to call home, they cannot build a life. With Doug Ford, we've seen the scrapping of rent control, so that people don't know how much their rent is going to go up after their lease completes at the end of a year. We also see people that are getting reno-evicted. We see people that are getting demo-evicted. And further, we need to close the loophole that the last Liberal government opened with vacancy decontrol. You know, where there's an unwritten incentive for a new landlord or a bad corporate landlord to kick good long-term tenants out because they know they can jack up the rent. That's completely unfair. I think of all the seniors in the riding who are concerned about living in their cars. You know, there was just also other folks who are concerned about, having to use food banks for the first time in their life. We need to look after affordability in this province.
Paul McKeever of the Freedom Party.
Well, if I can only do one thing, it would be justice for everybody who's been harmed by the Ford government's response to COVID. There's been so much harm done, and there are people suffering to this very day as a result of the measures that were brought into play, whether that was sending people home without pay, saying that, well, if you don't comply with our, let's say, vaccine or masking requirements, you're going to lose your job. That certainly wasn't opposed by the government. We had people who were injured. We had people who were, lost their businesses. The steak place, I believe it was, that the fellow was outside serving steak and was arrested. There are people who have been charged and convicted. They need to have their records expunged. And those people who were forced to pay fines for what happened, for just standing up for their own individual rights, need to be reimbursed in full for what they've been forced to pay. So I want to see justice first, then we can get on with changing the future.
Okay. A new Leger post-media poll, it's 48 hours old as of the recording of this debate, shows Doug Ford with a 20-point lead on the second-place leader, Bonnie Crombie of the Liberals. There's not much campaign time left. What can your leader do to close that gap? We'll start with Paul McKeever of the Freedom Party.
Well, I am the party leader, so that's one thing. What I can do to close that gap is simply to advise the public about the gross incompetence of the current premier. We already have the premier speaking in concert with the federal authorities about treating the tariff threats, for example, as the equivalent of a pandemic. Just the other day, the leading Liberal leader Mark Carney, said that he's willing to use anything in his power to fight the tariffs, including emergency powers. So between Mr. Carney and Mr. Ford talking about pandemics and emergency powers, I can only say, do not give this fella power again. He's about to do it again. He'll put the legislature aside, he'll issue edicts and orders, he'll ration, he'll take you out of your job if you have to, he'll raid your bank account. Don't let him back into office.
Next we'll go to Carol Dick of the Green Party.
Well, our leader, Mike Schreiner of the Green Party, can just keep on doing what he's doing. We're the only party right now that has put out a platform. We are talking about having a caring government again. I think that really resonates with people. We can just keep sharing our message that we think that the best way to deal with problems is through prevention and not Band-Aid solutions. We will continue to listen to the experts so that our decision making is actually in line with what the experts say. We're not going to continue with just tossing off party lines and repeating the same slogans over and over again. We're about finding solutions and really making sure that people's lives are going to be better. So as Mike Schreiner gets out around the province, people are really hearing that message, it's resonating, and we're seeing that our party is really on the rise.
Next, Tariq Khan of the Liberals.
Yep. Ford spent like millions of dollars just to create this false perception that he is popular. We are going door to door and people are really, really angry. We have 15 days, 14 days more. We will dilute this and people are waiting for 27 and the advance polls. They say that, okay, we will go out and we will teach Ford a lifelong lesson that, okay, we don't like you, we don't want you, and we don't want you forever.
Terrence Kernahan of the New Democrats.
With Marta Stiles, you will have a premier who is truly on your side. We take our advice as a political party from experts, whether it's our healthcare plan, which is informed by the Ontario Medical Association. It would free up 19 hours per week per family physician so that they could see 20 more patients a day. It will free up 2 million spots for people seeking that primary health practitioner. We also take our advice from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, which has called out Doug Ford's downloading of provincial responsibilities onto municipalities. Look, here in London, we're seeing our property tax increases going up by almost a third, 30%. People simply can't afford that. We need the province to take back its responsibilities. We're going to have a cost-sharing 50-50 model for transit. We're going to make sure that the province will look after shelter funding, as is its responsibility, as well as the provision of affordable housing so that people have a safe place to call home.
Nearly 1/3 of downtown London's office space is vacant, and that number is projected to continue rising. This is a question that's crucial to all 4 of London's provincial ridings, but especially this one, London North Centre. So what is your party's plan to fill it? We'll start with Terrence Kernahan of the New Democrats.
You know, in addition to having traditional rent control for people with their houses, we also need commercial rent control. We have seen commercial rents rising at an astronomical rate. We need to incentivize people to come back into the downtown. Unfortunately, I was very much looking forward to the WSIB coming to have their head office here, downtown London. Unfortunately, because of pricing, we saw that being chased away into another riding, and that's such a shame. The life and the vibrancy and all of the shopping at downtown shops would have been great to have with all of those employees, but unfortunately, they're no longer here. We need to make sure that downtown London is a destination. We also need to make sure that there's more housing. We could redevelop some of those commercial spaces into that great affordable housing that people need so that we have that life, we have that culture. We have great things going on in downtown London, and we need to make sure that the provincial government reinforces that.
We'll go next to Paul McKeever of the Freedom Party.
Well, a lot of these buildings are privately owned, so there's not a lot of government can or should be doing with respect to privately owned buildings. However, we also have to keep in mind that there's been a huge shift since COVID in the way people conduct business. I'm a lawyer. I conduct probably 90% of my business now that used to be conducted in office, face-to-face, is done over long distances via telephone. So, or via Zoom and any number. In fact, the courts, the tribunals no longer meet. We hold hearings, we hold settlement discussions all over Zoom. So the need for commercial space is not what it was pre-COVID. The owners of these buildings, I don't believe the government should be involved in giving them money. However, one thing that the provincial government could do, and it could ripple down to the municipal level, which the provincial government has jurisdiction over, is lower or remove property taxes on those commercial buildings so that the owners of those buildings can then use the savings to convert commercial into residential space.
Carol Dick of the Green Party.
So definitely we're seeing a hollowing out of a lot of the downtown areas, and we see that happening here in London, and we really need to bring the life back into our downtown core. And part of that is supporting small businesses, but part of it is also creating more housing in the downtown core so that people want to live close by where they're working. And so that will help create businesses in those vacant areas. One of the things I've talked about a lot is turning the parking lots that are all over scattered in the downtown core into apartment buildings with shops underneath, because you don't have tourists come to a city just to look at vacant parking lots. They come for the restaurants, they come for the shops. If we can start putting different forms of housing downtown, like quadruplexes, which has been blocked by the Ford government, and creating some smaller houses downtown, we can start creating more of a core down there to bring people to all the great amenities that we have in London.
Tariq Khan of the Liberals.
Thank you. I started my career in city management, and whenever you think about a city, you think about a downtown. And I'm very, very much clear that we haven't tapped even 10% of opportunities that we have on in our vision. And we need to think about on those lines out of box. We need to talk with the province to bring money into the downtown so we can present this downtown to the Ontario, to the Canada, to the world. And if investment funding will be coming in, you will see all sorts of problems going away. All sorts of problems going away. This is the only funding issue, and we are not able to get any funding from the province since last 6 years, and this is something like a criminal, I take.
Okay. Our next question, we hope to strike an optimistic note with it. Tell us something positive, uniquely positive, about life in London North Centre, starting with Tariq Khan of the Liberals.
You think about anything in London, Queen's Park, like the Lights Festival, food festivals, and City Hall, Masonville, university hospitals, everything is there. We only need to highlight, and we need to boost our morals of London North Centre residents, which is at this moment it's like all-time low, because they are also sort of depressed that Ford has abandoned London, and we don't have any voice who can really amplify London North Centre's residents' voice to the Ford, because we have over 103K resident in London. It's a very big force. We need to unite with, we need to take the City Council on board, and we need to take the funding back. Those are our own funding, which Ford is not releasing.
Terence Kernahan of the New Democrats.
There are so many amazing things about London North Centre. I don't even know where to start. I don't think I could get through that entire list in 1 minute. But I think the most quintessential thing about Londoners is that we care about one another, we're highly educated, and we work hard. We deserve a provincial government that respects that and understands that and also supports that. We need to make sure that we are getting value for our money with our tax dollars. With Doug Ford, unfortunately, you're having to pay twice. We are not only just paying taxes once, but then we're being saddled with a 30% tax increase. That is something the Ontario NDP would take away. The thing that I can say I'm most proud of over my work over the last 7 years has been that I worked with Brescia University College, King's University College, Huron University College, and Western to get 35 former Crown wards, kids who'd aged out of the foster care system, a free university education. And that is what makes London great. We look after each other.
Paul McKeever of the Freedom Party.
No question in my mind, it's university life and the resources, both research and technological, that we have. This is a real centre for all of Ontario, never mind just the London area. Whether it's cardiac expertise, whether it's legal training, whether it's dentistry, we've got it all here. And so, to my mind, you've got the intellectual strength, you've got the monetary strengths, and you've got the vibrant activity of the student and academic body in this riding. That's what I would like to highlight, I would believe.
Okay, and Carol Dick of the Green Party.
So I would say that absolutely the best thing about London is the sense of community. And by community, I also mean all the work that the nonprofit organizations do here in London. I'm intimately aware of that because I have sat on 3 different boards, and I've also sat on 2 advisory committees within the City of London. And we have something really, truly special here. We have so many people that are working to make the city more sustainable, to bring people food. They're helping the homeless and the most vulnerable out in the streets and in the encampments. And I've lived in many places, and I have never seen such a strong sense of community as in London. I mean, sometimes, obviously we'll criticize ourselves here. But honestly, what we have here is so special with the nonprofit organizations that are working very, very hard to pick up where the government is failing them. And I've been very proud to be a part of that process.
Okay, let's return now to what for many voters is the overarching most important issue in this election, the threat of Donald Trump's economic tariffs. If I'm a factory worker in London, fearful of the toll that the tariffs may take on my job, what are you going to do for me? And we'll start with Carol Dick of the Green Party.
I actually want to disagree with that statement right to start, because we have all been knocking on doors and we ask every single time, what is the top concern for you or priority? And it is almost never the tariffs, it's always healthcare. But that still doesn't change the fact that obviously the tariffs are a threat and that we're going to be having some serious problems economically going forward if these threats happen. So as I had mentioned before, we need to start thinking now about creating a task force that is at all levels of government, all levels of business, to try to figure out how we can best address this issue. We need to have a Buy Ontario plan, and we need to have a fund started immediately to help those workers that are expected to lose their work because of this tariff threat, as well as funds to help those small businesses that might lose their opportunity to continue their businesses. We have to support Ontarians first and foremost.
Tariq Khan of the Liberals.
Thank you. Let me say that this is more ballooned or amplified thing which Doug Ford is trying to cash in. I was London Transit Commissioner when COVID hit, and everybody was sitting at home. We were out to take care of our frontline workers, to take them to the hospitals, to the dispensaries. And when every organizations were fighting or struggling for the manpower, we inducted dozens of Londoners into London Transit to keep this system running all the time. We do have a plan. We are just ready. Let's see what type of tariff they impose upon us. We are ready, and we will fight with the double force. Don't worry.
Terence Kernahan of the New Democrats.
In terms of responding to these tariffs, what we need to do is make sure that all government expenditures are going to fund and support Ontario's jobs. We haven't seen that focus in a long, long time. We need to embark upon a building program where we're employing all of those skilled laborers to rehabilitate many of the schools that are crumbling because of the school repair backlog. We need to be building that housing. We need to be building more infrastructure projects. I think of the Heyman Brothers Construction Company here in London, Ontario, who during the Great Depression decided to build homes for their executives. And that way, they continued to keep those people employed. That's what we need to focus on. We need to take our advice from the Ontario Chamber of Commerce and make sure that we are supporting Ontario, building Ontario, finding new trading partners, and making sure that we have a long-term tariff-proof province.
Paul McKeever of the Freedom Party.
The most important thing to do in response to the tariffs is not to overreact and not to react badly. One really bad move would be to do what Doug Ford said he was threatening to do, which is to flick off the power supplied to the United States. Well, a lot of that power goes to Michigan. And what do they build in Michigan? Cars. And where do those car parts come from? Canada. And where do some of those cars come from? Canada. And what do you think will happen if you cut off electricity from some of the most electricity-intensive manufacturing in the world? To protect Ontario auto manufacturers, we need to make sure that the electricity keeps flowing on both sides of the border. Here's the other thing. Doug Ford's saying he needs a mandate to spend tens of billions of dollars, which means borrow tens of billions of dollars, which means leave you holding the bag for tens of billions of dollars for the people affected and the companies affected by the tariffs. That means mostly auto companies. If you give auto companies free taxpayer money, guess what the president will do? Raise tariffs even more. Don't do it.
Unfortunately, due to the attention paid to Trump's tariff threat, there has been less attention placed on the growing strain on Ontario's municipalities. So my question for you, what is the main issue facing municipalities across the province? And we'll start with Paul McKeever of the Freedom Party.
Sorry, are you connecting it to the, okay.
No.
Yeah.
The question is, growing strain on the 400 plus municipalities in Ontario, in your opinion, what is the main issue facing them?
The main issue is that they have too many responsibilities. There needs to be a review of the span and scope of municipal authority. We saw during COVID, for example, this patchwork quilt of responses to the COVID crisis. Rules in one town were not the same as the other. We had medical officers of health saying one thing in one town and another thing in another. We need to keep municipalities focused on their core responsibilities, roads, infrastructure, etc. Good moves, things like, an overpass or an underpass to allow trains to pass without interrupting car flow. Bad moves, having a whole department of a municipality make sure that it keeps its health policies in line with WHO mandates. We need to focus on the traditional roles of municipalities so that they don't have to pay for so many things. There are certainly things that they should not be doing that they currently are doing, and we need a review of municipal authorities.
Carol Dick of the Green Party.
Well, there's two problems. One is that the provincial government has downloaded a lot of responsibilities onto the municipalities, as Mr. McKeever said. And then on top of that, the provincial government has withheld a lot of funding from municipalities, which of course we know cannot run deficits. So they are now hit with a double whammy that they are supposed to deal with an exploding problem because we're having an affordability crisis, we have mental health crisis. And on top of that, they do not get the resources that they need to address those issues. So number one, we need to get more money from the provincial governments to the municipalities, but the provincial government also needs to start taking the lead in addressing a lot of these issues. Because at the moment, what's happening is that these problems are getting offloaded onto nonprofits, and their money is drying up as well because the provincial government has decided to withhold money even from nonprofits. And it's just creating a ballooning problem in several sectors.
Tariq Khan of the Liberal Party.
Yeah, municipal governments or the local governments is something like I can speak, and I speak on those subjects. And I'm trying to get back to the City of London. I sat on with Dyke on TFAC, and I'm a chair of Court of Ruin / City of Committee of Ruin for the City of London. I'm a chair of ITCAC. We basically sit between council and the staff, and we look all sorts of infrastructure projects. So when talking about the municipalities, I always tell my audience that it's a government sector is like a double-decker bus. The upper floor is the federal government, and the lower floor is the province, and the tires are the municipal government. For example, you think any project, any function that cannot be done without municipal government functioning properly.
Terence Kernahan of the New Democrats.
Because of Doug Ford's provincial downloading, we see that Londoners are being faced with that 30% tax increase. Just the other day, in the letters to the editor in the Free Press, one senior citizen, Anna, was talking about how she was afraid of her and her husband becoming homeless as a result of this increased cost or going without food for a month and a half. It's really wrong that we have great organizations like Innova that have to turn away women who are escaping violence because there simply isn't space. It's time for the province to resume its historic responsibilities for shelter funding, for building that affordable housing. Everywhere you look in London, there are encampments, and that is Doug Ford's legacy because he has chosen to allow all creation of affordable housing to be left to the private market. I've spoken with folks in the private market, and they don't want to create affordable housing. There simply isn't that profit margin in it for them. So that's why the province needs to step up, it needs to pay its bills, and it needs to look after its responsibilities.
Okay, that was the final question of our all candidates debate. We'll move now to closing statements. I'll note again for the viewers that all the candidates in this riding were invited to participate. So each candidate will be given 1 minute to wrap up with a closing statement, and we'll start with Terrence Kernahan of the New Democrats.
Thank you very much for hosting this debate, Rogers TV. It's been my honor to represent London for the last 7 years. I've been proud to champion the voices and the great people and all of the innovations going on here in our great city and riding. I look forward to continuing that work and making sure that London has a strong voice at Queen's Park. We don't want an individual from Queen's Park coming and telling us what to think. We deserve to have a spot on that stage where we're talking about being a world city of music, where we're talking about our agri-food sector, our digital creative sector, our insurance sector, and so many more. London is a place of opportunity. It's a place of great people. And I very much hope that you'll make sure to get out on election day, and I hope that you'll vote for me.
Paul McKeever of the Freedom Party.
Well, again, thank you, Rogers, for giving us the opportunity to speak directly with the public. I want to express some regret that the Progressive Conservative candidate didn't show. This is the second election in a row that he didn't show for the Rogers debate. And I would ask the voter to consider what that means when the person who seeks to represent you in the legislature is hiding from you. If you want to learn more about Paul McKeever and Freedom Party of Ontario, you can visit Freedom Party, one word, freedomparty.on.ca. And I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to all of the people on this panel. I hope you will trust me with the responsibility of representing you at Queen's Park. Again, Paul McKeever, leader of the Freedom Party in the riding of London North Centre. Thank you.
Carol Dick of the Green Party.
Yep. Thank you, Rogers, for hosting us. In this time of turmoil, we need a government that puts people before profits. We need a government that is committed to addressing the affordability crisis. We need a government that will work with opposition parties to create long-term solutions so that we can build a more resilient Ontario. To do that, we need MPPs that put their constituents first, not their parties. As a Green, I will not just trot out party lines or parrot my leader. I will be your champion in Queen's Park first and foremost. My job as MPP is to advocate for you, not for my party. London has problems, we have challenges, but I believe in London and I believe in Londoners. We have many great people who work hard every day to make our city more sustainable, more affordable, and more inclusive. But they can't do it alone. Let's work together to protect the people and places we love right here in London, now and for future generations. Thank you.
Tariq Khan of the Liberals.
Thank you, Rogers, for this wonderful opportunity. I speak from heart. I don't read scripts, so I'm talking directly to the Londoners, London North Centre residents. This is the time to come out and vote because your future is on stake. Ford has neglected, abandoned London, and he will keep doing it if you vote any other party except Liberal Party.
And with that, I want to thank all four candidates who participated in today's London North Centre debate. My name is Patrick Maloney. Thank you for watching, and I remind you to vote on or before the February 27th Ontario election.